Okay, I have the Zeiss Ikon R10 here. It is also known as, I believe, the Mul-T-Lock 5 Plus Interactive or something like that. There's the MT5 for Mul-T-Lock 5, I believe. This lock has 5 sliders on the bottom. They interact with this groove here. Unfortunately, it's a little bit boring bitting. 4 of them are the same, it looks like. And on the other side, we have 5 pin-and-pin dimples. The dimples on here are pretty well done in my opinion. There's a little lip on the outside of the inner driver, which catches pretty well. And on top of that, I was made aware that there's a little bit of overmilling on the plug, and I'd wondered why I had to keep tapping on all the drivers as if they were tapered. And that's when that was pointed out to me. Made things a lot easier to understand why I was getting what I was getting. And then there is a 6th pin at the back. It's an interactive element. So when you put the key in, you'll see that it lifts up on that little interactive element. And that allows it to push a pin up higher than the top of the key would normally be able to push. And that goes up into the plug pretty far. It's kind of hard to find with a pick, so it's pretty effective as well. So the key right there, like that. So if you were to count, you got 5 sliders, 5 pins. If you count the inners and outer separate, that's 10, 15, and then the 16th element that you have to manipulate. So quite a bit going on in this lock. To start, what we'll do is we'll take all the sliders and we'll push them all to one side. And there's a number of things you can do with these sliders. I'm usually used to picking primarily with feel and sound, so sliders is mostly visual, so I don't know how much you'll be able to follow along with this, but you can put your tension on like normal, and I have a multi-pick number 10 here that I can go and I can feel on the sliders themselves or on the pins, and like any other thing, the ones that are in true gates will jiggle, the ones that are in false gates will bind pretty hard. You just gotta find your binder. But another thing you do is you can bounce your tensioner. I find clockwise doesn't work so well, but if you bounce it counterclockwise, what will happen is that slider will ram into the ones that are in false gates, and they will actually pop up in the plug. You can see them move up and down quite visibly. Whereas the ones that are in their true gates, they're not going to move. They're not going to pop up. So you can do this, and now with some tension, we can go. And rather than pushing on the pins themselves, I actually drop down into a channel to the left of the slider and push on the entire slider. So 1, 2, click. And then I'll 3, 4, and I think I'll have to recount. Let's see where we are with the bouncing. I see some bouncing on, I believe, 4 towards the back. So 1, 2. Hard time getting next to 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check our thing again. I'm seeing motion still, it looks like on number 4. So 1, 2, and I'm dropping down into each channel, counting my way back. 3. You can put marks on your pick, might make it faster. 4. And can I find 5 this time? I did find 5 this time. Okay. All right, motion from 4. I think I pushed it too far to the right. So I have this SS Dev thicker hook. Gives me a bit of ability to kind of push on these pins. So 1, 2, 3. I think is that 4 or 5? Let me see if I can jiggle it. I think that was 5 though. Okay. Now checking for bouncing. I still got bouncing just on 5 at the back. It looks like 4 is no longer bouncing. So I'll go back again with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that feels pretty solid. I think 5 might be too far to the right as well. So I'll go in with my hook again, back pin, the back slider, push it back a little, still see it moving. Either it or 5 though. Let me get the flashlight. See if I can't see. Oh, the flashlight might be too bright. It's actually not helping as much. Try to see my sliders a bit better. I can see it really pop up, really, like I don't even need to jiggle, I just push on it and I can see it actually move up. So I'm gonna see, it should be binding when I go to push on it. Actually, if I go push on the actual one that's popping up like that. Okay, got a little click from, I think, 5. Let's see where I'm at now. 4 is not moving, but 5 looks like it is still jiggling some. I wonder if it's still too far over. Push it over a little bit more. The sliders usually take me about 5 minutes or so. They can take a bit of time. Still jiggling. 5. There we go. Nothing's moving anymore, looks like. Okay, so that tells me I believe the sliders are all set. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this down. I like putting it down like this and then turning it clockwise because there's these like warding sticking up on the right that catch the tensioner just nicely. So now I'm going to use this Dongxi pick, and I'm going to try to lift up on the outers. Number 1, little tiny click. 2, click. Click from 3. Decent click from 4. Actually, you know what? I skipped a step. You should generally start with the, I think, the 6th pin. And so I have this multi-pick number 2. And it can be hard to find that pin just by rubbing with this. It is pretty flush with the top of the keyway. So this thing gives me good spacing and like a curve to the flag to push up with it. And I'm going to run it down the right side of these pins. And there's the chamber right there. And I'm going to try to... All right, I lifted up on it some. Got a little click out of it. And now that I've lifted it up, I can probably find it with this straight flag. And there it is. And just make sure it's set. Yep, feels set. And now I'll go back to picking. I shouldn't have to worry about that for the rest of the pick. All right, 1, nothing, 2, nothing, 3, nothing, 4, nothing, because I already lifted them all, and 5 is binding. Click from 5. And now because we have that overmilling, they might be like tapered, so I have to go through and click them all again probably. Yep, 1 click, click from 2, click from 3, little click from 4, check number 5 again. 5 felt like it went up maybe a little bit more. Go back to 1, 2, 3 feels like it might be stuck up in the up position, and that usually has to do with the inner pin coming into play. 4 and 5 also feels like it might be stuck up. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to take this multi-pick 10 again, and I'm going to try to lift up inside pin 3 and push up on the inner pin and see if that'll let the outer pin drop back down. I know I'm on the inner because, well, I was on the inner. I go up inside the outer and I get my pick trapped in there. Forward, backward, left, right, it's stuck in there. So it's stuck inside the outer pin, and I just fell out again. And that lets me know that I'm up inside it of that pin. And I'll try to, if I can get inside it properly, I'll try to find that inner pin. All right, click from the inner pin there. Make sure that's high enough, yep. And that should drop down that outer pin of 3. Indeed it did. 5 is still up high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this curve here and see if I can feel the 5th pin's inner. If not, I'm going to let off some tension, and it could just be that the outer of pin 5 is overset, which I think is the deal. So I'm going to let off some tension. Just enough to let that 5th pin drop down. Go back over the outers again. Feel for binders. 1, 2, no. 3, no. 4, yep, little click. And 5. Little click from 5. Go back to the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. Little click from 5. and might have got a little bit of plug movement. One feels now pretty solid. Like I can't push up on one at all. One is stuck up as well. 2, 3, 4. All right, one is stuck up. So let's go ahead and try to pick the inner pin of one and see if that'll drop one back down again. The inner pin is stuck pretty solid. There, and that dropped one down, and you might have saw I got some major plug rotation. So now, oh, I was gonna say I'm bound on the inners, but I just let it all drop again. So, which really sucks. I'm gonna check if I lost number 6 as well, or how much I lost doing that. I might have lost everything. I was letting off the tension too much to show that the inners were binding, which was foolish, but we get to go through the whole process again. In fact, all right, 6 is set. All right, 1 outer, little, 2, 3, yep, click, click from all 5 of them. Go back to number 1, another click, 2, another click, 3, another click, another little click from 4, nothing from 5. Go back to the beginning, little click from 1, nothing from 2, maybe a little click from 3, little click from 4, and number 5, I think I overset. Hold it off a little, let that fall back down again. 1, 2, 3, 4 might be stuck high. I might let that down too. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Click from 4. I think a little something from 5 there. 1, 2, 3 is feeling stuck up. 4. All right, 3 is feeling stuck up. So let's go with that little multi-pick again and feel for the inner on 3. Make sure I'm inside of 3. 1, 2, 3. I keep ending up like outside of 3 rather than on the inside. I think the inner on 3 is kind of aligned with the outer pin, making it hard to differentiate from the outer. 1, 2, 3. So I count my way along the outside of the tops of the pin. 1, 2, working my way to the number 3. Now I'm just trying to feel around for the inner. There we got the inner. Got a little click out of the inner on 3. Do the outer thing again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Sucks I had it basically open before, except for the inners. 5 just went up really high. I'm kind of feeling that I overset it, but I can take this curve flag, and that can help me push up on check on inners as well, for the ones that don't go up higher than the outers. No. So 5 just might be overset. Let it drop back down again, and try the. I'm hoping I didn't lose sliders when I accidentally reset before. Helps to put some markings on the. I had markings down here before they wore off to show if you're biting on sliders or if you're biting on top pins. I got a little click from 4 outer and a click from 5 outer. 2, 3, 4. Keep feeling like I get number 5 overset though. All right, 1 is binding hard. All right, so I think I'm back at the inners holding it up on number 1. Took me a while to get here again. Yep, 1 is binding. Getting it up a little bit. Click from 1, and we got back to that false set again. So now, back to where I had lost my progress before. I'm stuck on at least one of the inners, maybe more. I can check the inners on the ones that don't go up further than the outers with this curve, the back of the curve here. Actually, first I'm going to do it with this to see. Pin 2. I think that was a little click from 2. 3. And then 4 and 5, they're high up, so that's where I switched to this curved one because they're a bit hard to feel with the flat flag. 2, 3, 4. And 5. Not really feeling anything back there. Check the inner on 3. I think I felt that pin was held up. Come on, 2, 3. It can be hard to find this inner on 3 some reason. There we go. Click from the inner on 3. Click from the inner on 2. Go back to that curved one again, see if it's 4 or 5 holding us up. 2, 3, 4. Doesn't seem like it. 5. Can't really even find 5. Oh, maybe a little click from 5 actually. And 4. Oh, a little click from 4. The inner on 4. And 1 seems to be binding hard with the outer. Yep. 1's outer seems to be binding pretty hard. So let's check if it's the inner on 1. Lifting the inner on 1. Come on. I guess it's just set. 2. So I'm not 100% sure what's holding us up at this point. 1, 2, 3. Well, a little click from 4. But I don't know if that was an overset or not. Not sure how inner oversets really affect us. Oh, and we're open. I just tapped the little one. So we'll explore the inside a little bit. Pretty long pick. I don't think I'm 100% confident with this lock yet. But we'll take a look at the inside. Get some autofocus on. Oh, that's not the one I want. There, that's the one I want. Okay. First, we'll start by locking her back up, like that. We'll go ahead and take this clip off the back, right here. Then we'll get a key. Unlock that. Shim. I just bricked it, so you don't really need the shim, but I'm a little bit nervous at this point, especially because my nicer followers are upstairs, so I'm just using this 3D printed thing. I don't think the shim's going in very far, but all right, got that out. So you want to catch your sidebar when you pull that out like that. So here's the sidebar on the bottom. Just straight sidebar. Zoom in a bit. Okay, yeah, so just straight sidebar there. There's 2 little springs for the sidebar. There's 1. There's 2. Get this nerdy magnifier off my head and go back to my normal glasses. All right, top pins. Pin 1. And these are all pin and pin. So there's the outer of 1, inner 1. I need something to poke the inners out with. Inner. So what I was saying with pin 3 is I would come on the outside, go down, drop in, and then I get stuck inside. That's how I know I'm inside that inner, right? So you want to pick that can fit inside there. The one that I was picking the outers with, I would come down the outside, and I'd be lifting up on just the lip of lip of it, but this thing doesn't really fit inside at all. It's too big. And then the curved one, I would be able to use the entire back of the flag to push the inner like that, but I wouldn't be able to get inside. So that would just be for inners that are lower than the outers on that particular key cut or that pinning. All right, number 3. Taking the inner out. 3, 4, inner of 5. That's number 6. We'll take a look at that in a bit. And the outer of 5. Gotta get the inner of number 4. Okay. Now the sliders here, they're held in by the key, so when you gut it, you don't have to worry about them falling out. I don't know that I've taken these out before. Okay, can't poke them from that side. Maybe I can poke them from the window. So let's look at this first slider. All right, so this first slider, you can see, hopefully, let's get it closer actually, that it's got false gates. They're little serrations on there. See if there's a better way to hold this. There's false gates on there. Oh, come on. Here we go. So you see those little serrations? Those are the false gates that the sidebar catches, and then you got that one deep true gate there. And that's why when you bounce it, the sidebar doesn't touch that true gate at all. It's really deep. So that's slider 1. Oh yeah, and I don't have to worry about springs for these either because they're unsprung. 2. Come on. 3. Actually, I'll put these up higher because I got springs and driver pins still to come. Sorry, it's taking a bit. 4. Number 4. It's not in there pretty, but it'll do. Number 5, come on. Number 5. All right, what I was talking about with the overmilling is if you look inside this plug here, you can see that there's like a little ring at the top of each of these. And that's where it's been made a little bit wider on every chamber. Okay, and what that does is when you have a driver pin, that driver pin you're going to push up, and it's going to click there, and then you're going to have to push it again to get over the next hump, right? And so that's kind of like the taper where you have to pick each of them twice potentially. Then we'll look inside here. Take that shim out, and in here you're going to see that the drivers, you want to have them in this orientation. See if I can maintain that orientation. That you see there's a little sprung inner piece, okay? You want to make sure you don't put it in upside down. Upside down, you're not going to have it's going to not give you that inner spring pressure. And if we look at one of these drivers, they have a little lip here at the bottom of the, so it gets caught there, kind of like a little spool almost. Only on the inner. The outer is just a standard. Okay. So these are all the same, nothing too exciting here, except for the 6th pin, the interactive pin, which we'll take a look at in a second. So I'm just going to pull all these out. 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th one is a spool that goes with that interactive. So you have to deal with that spool a little bit when you're setting that. So there's that spool. Now the interactive pin, you can see, is a funny shape. It has this little extra bar down, and that's the piece that actually drops down to the keyway. This part pushes up on the driver, but the piece that drops down into the keyway is just a really thin little thing, and it goes into this little hole right there. So you see that's got that shape. It's got that little hole there. So that little hole is all you're trying to poke. And if you're trying to poke that with this big old thing, you can't. It's hard to find your way into there. So I was using that curved flag, and there's like from this piece of wording here to that hole, it's got a good spacing so that if I just push against that wording and then I turn this, obviously it'd be from this side, it tends to just go straight into that hole. So I got a good distance like that. Goes right in there. And that can push that up. Without that, that pin is pretty flush with the top of the plug. So you're like fishing around trying to push on it, and you're under tension, so it doesn't move unless you push on it fairly hard. Yeah, and if you don't use enough tension, then you're going to be bonking sliders around, so it can be a pain in the butt. In any case, that oh, one last thing. 4 minutes left on the recording only. When I was gutting it before, I didn't have the follower, and I ended up bricking it. So what I did was I had it like this, and when I was gutting it, I was just using the plug as my follower, and I was kind of working here I pulled one out, and at that point I bricked it. What I did was I had turned I turned it here like this. No, like this. Okay, I turned it like this. And what happened was that one of the drivers popped down into whatever this hole is here. I have no idea what that hole is for, but a driver popped down into that hole. And so I was able to go ahead and take a shim from the back and push that all the way in up to that point underneath all those drivers. That way, when I put it back in, the next driver wouldn't catch. And I took the whole thing and I basically slammed it on the floor a whole bunch of times. And what that did is, the kinetic, well, the motion, right? What is it? Not the inertia. Maybe it's the inertia. I don't know. This whole thing was flying down, right? And then we hit the floor. So this piece kept traveling while the outside of the lock stopped, so that this pin was able to travel down a bit further. And that allowed me to push the plug back in. And that's how I unbricked it. I only needed to slam it into the floor like 20 to 50 times. But if you encounter something like that, usually slamming it into the floor will unbrick it. In any case, the Zeiss Ikon R10. Thanks. Bye.